And Eric, you're up for 6 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I thank all of our witnesses for joining today. I'd like to start with Grand Chief Settee. Grand Chief, I represent the riding of Kenora in northwestern Ontario, so kind of your neighbor to the east. The majority of the communities in my riding fall under Treaty 3 and Treaty 9 territory, but there's also a small sliver of Treaty 5 in my riding as well.
Absolutely.
And I think there's a lot of similarities as well between my riding and the regions you represent. So just in talking about transportation and the infrastructure challenges, you mentioned winter roads. Those are obviously challenges we know very well in my region as well. So I'm wondering if you could expand a bit more on some of those transportation challenges and how the government can support that infrastructure.
Well, for housing needs, they need transportation. For the stocking of First Nations stores in First Nation communities, they absolutely need those roads because the price of freight and cargo is astronomical. No individual alone by themselves will be able to afford that, to be able to bring in food for themselves. So that's a factor, and it's always been a factor. And 15 flying remote communities in our First Nations are suffering if they don't have those roads. And sometimes that road is unable to be used because of warm weather. So their opportunities are limited. And sometimes the stores struggle with supply and demand, and it's a reality that we live in every year. About 2 or 3 parts of the year, we're suffering. Our people are suffering with getting supplies.
Absolutely, and I definitely appreciate those comments, and I think it goes into something I've been hearing a lot in my region about sort of the need for more development, responsible development in collaboration with northern communities and Indigenous communities. And I think you mentioned that sort of the empowerment aspect. So would you agree that in collaboration with Indigenous communities and with the North, if the government were to support more economic development, if that would help to bridge the gap? Because obviously these are the issue of food insecurity is. There's a number of issues that contribute to it as well. So I'm just wondering if you would agree that would help raise the standard of living as well.
In Northern Canada and First Nations, usually the rate of unemployment is 85%, if not more in some. So economic opportunities are the thing that will bring emancipation to our people from poverty, and education is our way out of poverty. And I'm a former teacher, so I've been preaching this for 20 years. That education and economic development go hand in hand. You cannot have one without the other. So if you zero in on economic opportunities for people to be employed, I think that's moving in the right direction.
Great, thank you. And I'll just ask one more question to you quickly, and hopefully I have some time to get to a couple other witnesses, the other witnesses as well. And I'll let you pick up where you left off in your opening remarks. You were talking about obviously food sovereignty and the need for a focus on cultural, traditional foods. Has the government done enough to support that in your view, and what could the government do better to help support that?
I think that the ability to access our traditional foods has been limited because of developments relating to hydros and hydro projects and pipelines. So our food security has been altered by that. But that does not mean that we can continue to exercise our right to hunt, trap, and fish. So those are the things. And if there's a big argument, and it's political, about the natural resources transfer agreements, that has really impacted our First Nations. But anyway, to make a long story short, no, not enough has been done. And then there needs to be more resourcing for our First Nations.
I appreciate that. That honesty, that openness. I think it's very good for our committee to hear, and thank you for those comments.
You're most welcome.
I'll ask Ms. Nikkel next, sort of on the transportation side as well. I'm curious to get your thoughts. Obviously, your organization, as I understand, operates across Canada, including in the territories. How have you found difficulty with the transportation challenges that we know exist across the North?
we're lucky because we have great partners, but we clearly can't provide the amount of food that is needed. And transportation is incredibly expensive, and it's almost prohibitive for us to get food into northern communities. And also, just the reality is the landmass is so huge, it's multiple trips, but you can only do one and done kind of thing. So I had to bring up like a whole lot to support one community, and hope that they could store the food. So transportation and, the melting of the permafrost is not helping those ice roads at all. Everything's becoming far more expensive. Getting planes out, perishable food is also the challenge, because the way you manage perishable food is very different than, shelf stable in cans. So all that to say, I don't think it's news to anybody. Transportation is a huge issue getting food to those communities.
Thank you. Chair, I think I'm running low on time.